Do you want to learn how to create stencils like this without scissors or an X-Acto knife? Stay tuned. I'm going to show you how. Sort of. I'll mess it up, realize what my mistake is, and fix it in real time. Hi, I'm Christine, the artist behind Darlyssa Designs, and I'm happy you're here. Welcome. Hi everyone. Today I'm going to make another stencil, and I'm going to make it the size of a journal page because that's what I want to use this stencil for. This one's a little bit larger than the ones that I normally use. This is just a composition book. This one is 9 3/4 by 7.5 inches. So I'm going to start out by measuring this page, and I'm just going to take a little and just mark where I want to cut, and I'll just cut right inside these marks. Okay, I cut this down and I'm heating up my wood burning tool, and it's got the soldering iron tip on it to make it really easy to go around the lines. So I'm letting that heat up, and I can't blame Skylar for losing the little stand for it because she's not living here anymore. And I'd like to mention that today is her graduation day. So if you guys want to leave a little comment for her, you know she would love that. We're going to go see her graduate from pre-K to kindergarten tonight. So we're all excited about that. Okay, so I cut this down, and then I'm using just a piece of glass that you can use any glass. This is probably, I don't think this is from a picture frame. I think it's from something else from the kitchen, or I don't know. Any glass will do. An old picture frame that you're not using anymore, you can take the glass off of it. So you see, this is about that size. And what I want to do today, and I'm wondering if I should use this because it's got a chiseled edge so I can make wider marks. And I'm going to stay about, let's see, I'm just going to stay within maybe 1/4 of an inch. I'm not going to measure it because I don't have to go that far. Sometimes I'll make the lines on the edge depending on what I'm doing so I don't go over, because you have to keep everything within the borders or else you're going to have a flimsy piece of acetate that'll just not work. So I'm just going to write some words. Art, let's do, I'm going to do some uppercase. Ooh, that went right to the edge. Perfect. What else can you do? Cut, because we do a lot of cutting. What else? Paint. Let's do this in lowercase. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to go around it and it's going to look cool in the end. So, what else? Paint, cut. I'm drawing a blank right now, so let's just start with what we have and give this a second to dry because you don't want to get this all over your hands. So that's pretty good. And this feels like it's pretty warm. So now all I'm going to do is just go around my letters, keeping in mind that if you cut anything out, like the inside of this A, you need to add little tabs to keep the piece from falling out. Unless you want to just go ahead and cut it out and then go back and add the middle later. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So you're just going to go through, and I do, if you can hear, I have my air conditioner running and also a little air filter. I don't smell anything from this. It's not one of those things where it creates a lot of horrible smells. But I always run my air filters just in case. And if you really want to be safe, you can put a mask on. This is a great project to do outside too. Now you see I've skipped a little bit here and there. I'm keeping the letters separate from the letter next to it. And I don't know, maybe as I go here, I'm going to combine some letters. You could do that. But again, you still need to make sure that there's lots of tabs to hold things together so you don't have pieces flopping around. Everything needs to stay separate. And I'll go back to the A right now as soon as I'm done with this, and I'll show you how to create. I usually just cut the inside out and I'll go back later and fill it in or go around it. You could do whatever you want to do. I will cut a tab for this one though, so that I can show you how to do that. I love making these stencils. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go across what I've already cut from where I've already cut, and I'm not going to cover. Okay, see, I just messed up. This is the part that I have a hard time with, because that's going to be gone. Yeah, I needed to do this before I did that. So I am just going to go ahead and cut this out, or take it out. Ugh. Okay. I've messed this up already. But we're going to keep going, because you'll see that it's still a cool process. So let me show you what I mean. So I started cutting this out. We're taking this piece out. I don't know what you would say, cut it. And be careful after you do this, because it's still very hot right there. I've done this a million times and I'm pretty good at not burning myself. However, I burn myself so many times. Okay, so here's what we have with the A. And if you have any pieces that are still stuck on here, you can just go back in and touch it. So you see, even though I messed up with the tabs, I'll have to go down here and show you how I do the tab before I do the outline. So we still have a nice A. We just don't have the middle of the A. And the trick to fixing that is, I don't know what I did with it now. You can save that little piece. Sometimes I save the little pieces and I'll take a piece of tape and just stick the little inside to the tape. And then that way, if I'm using it as a stencil, I can, if I want that middle piece to be there, I can put it there. Or you could take a little piece of tape and cut it out like a little triangle and fill those in. That's a bit time consuming. It's better to think first and do it the right way. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do another A. So you would go across the A and make the tabs on the actual letter itself. I'm going to do it on both sides. And now you're not going to take away the part in between those two lines. Now let's see if I did it right. But I'm going to go and I'm going to connect that first line. Then I'm going to go to the second line and trace around the A. That's what's so good about these. Now this one, I know I didn't go all the way to the edge, but I'm going to go to the edge now. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to connect those lines on the bottom half of the A and then go around and back up. Now I'm going to do the same thing at the top. I'm just going to go down to that line that I made for the tab, and then I'm going to do the inside and connect those tabs without going all the way down to connect these two pieces. Now I'm going to go down to the bottom of the triangle and connect those and then go across. So now I'm going to show you after I give it a second to cool. It cools down really quickly. So sometimes I like to use a little X-Acto knife. You can take the little pieces that get connected apart with the X-Acto knife. However, it's a little harder sometimes to control. Sometimes it's easier to use the soldering iron, and sometimes it's easier to, yeah, and you have to be very, very careful. That's why I like to use the soldering iron sometimes. So let me grab this top piece, and then I'll go in. And the problem with using the soldering iron is that sometimes you can burn an extra little notch there that you don't want. but it's easy to pick up these pieces with that and then go in, and I know it's hard to see with my big hands in the way, but I'll show you. The best way to do this is just to take these things out and do it a few times, because as you're working with this, you kind of figure out what's happening here, and you'll get used to it, and then you'll know what you're doing after a while. But even if I take a little break from creating my own stencils for a while, I'll come back and kind of forget how it works. So I'm gonna just show you a little sample. I'm just gonna put a little paint in there. And I'll show you the difference between the two A's. The one that I messed up here, I'll go ahead and do the whole thing here. And then here's the A that I created the tab for. So you have to just decide what kind of look you're going for and how much work you want to do in the end, because now what you need to do is come in with a little brush or a marker, whatever, and then just connect. This is a terrible brush, but you get the idea, and just connect it. So that's what we're doing today, and I don't mind that. You can go in with some white or whatever if you have a background that you're putting this on. Sometimes it is easier. If I painted this entire page and there's a solid background, and then I cut these out without the center in here, it's really easy to go back in. So let's just pretend that I painted this page white, and I didn't want to take the time to cut the centers out of everything, but I do want the centers of the letters out. I can go back in with the color that I used in the background and just go back in and add it. So there's several different ways you can do it. Whatever's easier. And sometimes I just like the look of, you know, more abstract letters where you don't have the centers in there. So that's, and of course, that one little thing, and I'm covered in paint already. So let me clean up my sheet here. You don't really have to, but let me get this all cleaned up and finished, and I'll come back. Okay, I just want to show you what happens when you use this and you do try and separate it, and you want to stay on the letter side because you're going to throw the letter away. But I created a giant hole there trying to get this thing off. So I don't know if you can see this, but where is it? The E right here. I've got a huge notch at the corner of that E. So what I'm going to do is just go back in and take off a little more of that E and straighten that edge out. Now, I'm not being really picky because this is just one that I'm trying to show you, but that's a good way to fix that. And of course you could do it a lot slower and cleaner if you want, but I'm just popping all these out, and then I'm going to show you a different way to do this. And then we'll test them out. That's all I'm going to do here on this one, because I really want to take the time to, and I'll keep this because it is a different look. It's messy and not even, and sometimes I'll use that just to place on the page and just do a little bit of a stencil just for texture, or I'll use the old ones that I'm not happy with as just a little bit in the background and then cover it up a little bit so just part of it is showing. So you don't have to throw it away if you mess it up. You can still throw it. These I keep in a little folder. So when I'm creating backgrounds, I can just grab all my rejects and use them to create texture on the background, and you know. So there's that, and I'm going to show you a different way to do this now. Okay, I cut this one at 8.5 by 11 because that's the sheet that I printed everything out on. So you can go in and do this in your computer, AI, ChatGPT, you know, however. You could take a photo of a poster or a magazine if you want to take some of the text off of that, however you want to do it. Now, you guys know that I've had a problem getting these layers straight. Sometimes I forget to put this part under the glass, but you're going to put the part that you want to copy under the glass instead of writing directly on the sheet. And then I take my acetate and you put it on top of the glass over what you're going to trace with the tool. Now, please do yourself a favor. Tape it down, because what happens is you'll, without thinking about it, go to turn it like you do when you're writing in a book or on a piece of paper, and then trying to get everything all lined back up again is so difficult. Now, what I like about this, and you can do this with the writing, you know, when you write the text as well, but you have less of a problem. I still have some of these inside pieces, but you have less of a problem, and your stencil is going to be a lot more durable if all the letters are touching. So that's what I like about this. You don't have to do that. Like I didn't do that in the first one. I could have, but I was just showing you. Now here I'm going to create my tabs. I'm going to create tabs on that side, and I'm going to create some tabs on this side. And then what you're doing is just treating the top and the bottom as two totally separate pieces. So I'm going to go do the bottom of the triangle, and I'm only going to go up to that line that I made for the tab. And then I'm going to go from that tab mark down. So the top of the A, and because these, I can keep going because these are connected, but the top of the A is separate from the bottom of the A. So I'm going to go back up to my tab lines here and go around and then back down to the first tab mark. Then I'm going to go from that tab mark up and over to the other one. So now this piece is going to come out. You have the middle out, and you still have the triangle. The triangle will still be in here. So I'll show you, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you real quickly because all these letters are together. And the cool thing about some of this is, now I'm just going to go around all the edges. The cool thing about some of these, and that's a whole nother talent, is the parts that I'm cutting out, I'm probably going to end up with the letters themselves to do an overlay. You're going to have two different stamps, two different templates with this. And you'll see in the end what that looks like. And you're just going to slowly, because if you go too quickly, and I tend to do that, once I get rolling, I start moving a little faster and a little faster, this tool will skip. But as I showed you before, if you want a smoother line, figure out which side is most important to you, and you can go in and smooth it out. If you want to use both pieces, the positive and the negative of your design, you want to limit that as much as possible, because, you know, one side's going to have the messy part. So the slower you go, and you see it doesn't matter which direction you go in, you don't have to go, you know, word for word. I got off my lines there a little bit, but then just try and get right back on as quickly as you can. I keep looking in the camera to make sure my microphone's on. That's when I get these wonky lines. But you just continue until you get the whole thing done. I like to go through when I'm doing this and do my tab lines first on everything that I want to keep the insides for. Do I need one here? I don't need a tab line here. Do I? Yes, I do. I do need a tab line here. And I'm just gonna go, see what I mean? You have to kind of stop and rethink what you're doing. I might go over here and realize that I didn't need the tab lines anyway. And if that's the case, then I would just take them out. So sometimes I like to go in and do the tab lines first, because once you turn on some music and you get started, it's very easy to just not pay attention to what you're doing. And then you end up with some letters that are missing the insides, if that makes sense. So let me go work on this, because this will take quite a while. You don't need to watch that. If there's anything that I need to tell you about, I'll come back and tell you. And then when I'm done with this, I'll show you both sides, the positive and the negative, and we'll test them out. Okay, here's another thing that I think might be helpful. This letter I was not attached to anything, and I did go around the C and not attach it. So I went back up above it, and I'm just going to take my R and go around, but then I'm going to go straight down instead of rounding that I off. And then I'm going to go around the I and create a little tab to this N. So I may go back later and take that out. You can always amend this after you take everything apart. I could have attached that to the S. There's lots of ways you can do that, but it's not a big deal if you're not going to use the inside part. If I'm just going to use this as a stencil and have the border like this, then it doesn't matter if I have the eye connected to anything, but I like to try to create my stencils so that I can use both the part that I'm cutting out and the part that's left. So you might be able to see that a little bit better when I'm done, and I'll go back and show you again. But, and by the way, I'll try and mention this again. Everything you need for this, I will put in the description as affiliate links for Amazon. So you can just go in and order what you need for this project without having to go try and figure out what I'm using and find it yourself. So everything you need will be in there. All right, I'll go finish and then I'll show you what I'm talking about when I take this apart. Okay, you know how I said you have to relearn or figure it out as you go sometimes if you don't do this for a while? So I cut out my stencil and I forgot a very important part. I did all the work, and as you can see, there are pieces. It's really hard to see because it's clear, but there's pieces that came out. There's the top part of my A is missing. I completely forgot. So you definitely, if you're going to cut the letters in half, you need the tabs on the outside as well to keep the rest of the letter there. So that you have to remember. And what I did was I just went in with my pen, and all the places that I messed up right there, I'm going to go in and just attach it so I don't forget. And then the other thing that I forgot about, and I started doing it in the beginning of the video, and for whatever reason I decided not to do it, but especially if you're going to use both pieces. So I can't even show you the other side because it came apart in so many different pieces. But if you want to use this part that you cut out or burn out, trace out, that you remove, you need the border, and you need these pieces to attach to the border. That way when you take this part out, this part is still in there. So it seems difficult. If you want to start out with a much simpler project, much more simple project, simpler, is that a new word? Did I just create that? If you want to start out with something that's not so difficult, you can check out my first and second stencil videos. They're a little bit easier. I'm going to go and make sure, because I want to make sure off camera so I don't get distracted and mess up and do all that work again and have to start over. The good thing is this is a pretty inexpensive project to do. You get lots of sheets in the Mylar, and then the rest is just, you know, paper and your tool. So once you get started, it's very inexpensive to do. So if you mess up really bad, you can just go back and do it again, which I hate to do because I'm dying to use this. But I'm going to go repair it, and I'm going to cut it again or remove the parts that I don't want again, and then I'll come back and show you and test it out. But this is still not a waste. You can still take this apart and just have smaller pieces in a different, I keep my smaller pieces separate, my small templates, and you can use this in other projects without taking the entire piece out. But anyway, or you can throw it away and start over. So I will link those two videos, the first one and the second one, down below, and I'll be back with a new piece done the right way this time. Okay, I just wanted to show you. See, this is what I was talking about in previous videos. If you haven't seen it, this is a journey. I'm not an expert. I learn as I go, and I'm sharing the process. So this time I went in and did the outline, and I'm making sure that everything has a spot where it's touching this border on the outside, because that's what's going to hold it together. And then I went ahead and went back in and added my little tab marks. And then there were a couple of spots where the letters didn't touch. So to keep it from being as flimsy, I took my black Sharpie and extended the letters so more of them will touch. There's another spot right there. So I'm going to go cut this out, and then we'll see how it turns out this time. Okay. I am definitely not going to get the part that comes out in between. And there are a few things that I didn't see and cut out. So, and I'll do this on a piece of paper so you can see it, but there were a couple things that I didn't attach, but for the most part, it came out pretty good, and I will redo this again at a later point and put these little pieces back in. But for now, it's what I wanted, and I can just go back and do the little pieces that are missing by hand. So I'll go get a sheet of paper and some paint, and we'll see how this comes out. Okay, now you definitely want to take this down. And here's another thing that I have learned from this process. I'm going to link what I'm using, the acetate, but I would really like to see if I can find a thicker one. I like this for smaller stencils, but this is definitely flimsy for a larger one. So I will do another video after I go online and find maybe a thicker, stronger piece for the acetate. And then I will share that with you. So I'm still learning. I'm still working out these processes. But that's why I started this channel, is not to be an expert, but to kind of record my process. I am a huge memory keeper. I have a terrible memory and sometimes flare-ups, and can't trust my own memories and thoughts a lot of time. So I thought it would be cool to go ahead and start while I'm kind of moving into that part of my life where we may retire soon, and our plan is to travel, and I need things to do. So I thought it'd be cool just to start this. Bob's 56, so I have a few years to figure out what I love doing and just record the process And believe it or not, I go back on my own videos and I learn things because I forget. Clearly, I forget things that you have to learn that I've already learned. And I go back and I do remember things when I watch my own videos. So a lot of times when I only have a few videos to go back on. This is only the third video I've done creating my own stencils. And of course, I've done it off camera a lot. But I mentioned earlier that sometimes when I don't do something for a while, I have to go back and relearn. And having these videos, this is another reason why, you know, if you're thinking about doing a YouTube channel, it's a good idea. Because you go back and you remember what you did and you learn again. And I'll go back and watch. I went back and watched my previous, oh, I forgot to take that spot out. There's always one. I'll go back and rewatch my stencil videos before I do the stencil video. I did it the last time and I did it this time. And I kind of scanned it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did remember a couple of things that I probably wouldn't have. And so I started from a different point without having to go all the way back to the beginning and relearn every single time. It's like Groundhog Day, but in the art room. I'm going to not do that. Well, yeah, maybe I will. I'll just go back and do it in white. So what I will do is keep this sheet, and I'll go back once I finish this and circle those spots that I need to remember to fix. And then when I go back and recreate this stencil, I would like to go get the thicker, oh, there's another spot right there. Then I will remember those spots so that I can fix them when I redo it. And, you know, sometimes it takes a few times to get these stencils right. And of course you could do a laser cutter or your Cricut or whatever. Somebody mentioned, Kathy, was that you? Scan and cut? But I like doing things from scratch like this. And a lot of times, like I said, we're going to travel a lot. I'm not going to pack up my Cricut and my laser machine and, you know, and some people just don't have that equipment. So before you go and spend a lot of money, there's another spot that I missed, right? Oh no, I didn't miss it. There we go. Before you go spend a lot of money, it's good to learn the old school analog way of doing everything, because maybe you're going to create these great stencils and then you find out you don't really like doing projects where you use stencils. I don't know. It's just a good way to get started, and also a good trick to have in your hat when you are somewhere and you can't take your stuff with you, or maybe you just can't get to it, or maybe it broke and you've got to get stuff done by the weekend for a art festival, or I don't know, whatever. It's always good to go and learn how to do things by hand. And the cool thing is it doesn't look perfect. So there you go. I mean, even with my mistakes, here, I just realized there's one more piece here that I missed. Even with all of my mistakes, I think this came out pretty good. I'm happy with it. And like I said, you can go back. So there's a couple different ways you can deal with this. You can go back and do this with a white pen and just kind of add these in. Now this pen is one that I put alcohol and paint in because it was dead. So it's not going to be able to, you won't be able to see this very, let me see if I have another white pen. Maybe, I don't know, I think this one's dead too. I need to clean out my, there we go. So you can go back and just add, if you've got paint underneath, you can use the paint and go back in and fix the parts that you missed. Or if you're going to use this to collage with, you could just make sure that you take those areas that are like that and collage something over it. I'll go back and fix that because you can't see it very well. Where's another spot? There's another spot over here somewhere. Da, da, da. And then also some places that are flimsy, you can go back and add little tabs to it and just mark it right on your sheet so that you don't remember. I mean, yeah, so you don't remember. So you don't forget where everything is. So this I will fix right here. I know you can't see that, but you know, you get the idea. Go back and mark the spots that you missed. And then when you want to go back and redo the stencil, and the good thing about doing them over and over again is that then your brain figures it out. And even if you don't remember, when you start a new stencil, it comes to you a lot quicker. So maybe you want to start with a more simple stencil. The small ones are really, really easy to do. So that's my experiment today. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I will link the other 2 videos in the description below if you want to check those out. And I will see you next week. I hope you all have a very crafty and creative weekend. And I really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.